Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Brothers Discuss. I'm Alex,
And I'm Chris.
and we are back continuing our MCU Marathon. We've made it to Phase 2, and we're here today to talk about Iron Man 3. And there's a lot to talk about with this film. And I guess we should start with, if you can remember, what was your expectation for the movie going in?
Going in, I remember this is gonna be like a much darker story than any of the other Iron Man movies, or at least that's what the trailers made
Mhm.
it to look like. And in reality, this is actually one of the more jokey Marvel movies that is out there. Um,
Mm.
but going into this, the bar was set pretty high after the Avengers, and Um, it looked pretty good. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Mm.
watching the trailers, this movie looked pretty good. Um, and then watching the movie, the first third of the movie, I'd say, lives up to that expectation. After
Mm.
that, I wouldn't say it takes a complete nosedive, but it just keeps going down for me.
Interesting. See, so yeah, I agree with you. I too really love the trailers for this movie, and I'll be honest, I
Mhm.
was actually a little iffy on Iron Man 3 before the first trailer. I remember I wasn't feeling Shane Black as directing yet, and I thought, oh, they're doing Iron Patriot and all this weird stuff, and
Right.
I want to like this. And then I saw the first trailer, and I went, wow, I dig this tone. And
hmm
we've seen nothing of the Mandarin. Like, we've only seen them in the same setting. They're keeping stuff from us, and I can't wait to see what they're not showing. And want to just jump straight ahead to the Mandarin twist? You might as well.
Go ahead.
All right. So when that twist happened, I had the most disgusted look on my face. It was it reminded me of the Cyclops death at X-Men 3, where I remember going, I didn't really just see that happen. Like, no, he's coming back in the end. And when he didn't, and when Guy Pearce said, I am the Mandarin, I went, whoa, okay. Like, I was shocked by it.
Yeah.
And I should preface this by saying I haven't read much Iron Man comics, so I'm not going to pretend to be a super fan of the Mandarin or anything like that. Um, because I'm fine with the filmmakers taking liberty with the source material and doing their own thing with it. That's fine. But I guess my issue is not necessarily that they changed the Mandarin so much in this film, but what they did with them, which to me, it just made him into a joke. And from the twist onwards, there's just way too much comedy in this film, way
Yeah.
too much, and it gets to the point where I don't buy into the serious drama that was in the film to begin with and
Right.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing that pisses me off the most about it, and not so much that Trevor is an actor, because I can kind of see that if he was an actor who was being forced against his will to do this, and he was an innocent man, he didn't want to do it, I can maybe be like, oh man, Killian is a bad
But no,
bastard.
he willingly did this.
Yeah, no, the fact that he was this drunk drug addict just pisses me off. Like the scene where, like that scene where he calls the president was so intense, and every sense of threat that the Mandarin had very quickly vanished. And like
Yeah.
when he came out of the bathroom talking about the shit he had done, like it made the Mandarin a joke, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: this cheapens Tony's origin because it means Killian was responsible for him getting captured in the first place, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Technically,
there's
yeah.
like there's 10 rings logos all over his attack videos, and it bothers me that nobody brings that up, not even Tony,
Well, actually, no.
since
Hold up.
those are the
Hold
guys
up.
that captured him. Yeah. Oh, what?
Well, think about it. The 10 rings is like an actual thing in
Mm-hmm.
the MCU because Shang-Chi, it's going to tie into like the actual 10 rings.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what Shang-Chi ultimately does, but I mean, I was under the impression with this film that Killian is the one that basically orchestrates everything that happens in Tony Stark's
He's the main
life
villain of the
afterward.
trilogy,
He is, yes.
all because
And
Tony didn't meet him on the roof.
yes, and I mean, like, in a lot of third films in a superhero franchise, there tends to be a change in directors. And I think the biggest example is, once again, X-Men 3, where it feels like a different universe with the same characters. And that's what this felt like. I mean, just tone-wise, Jon Favreau had a specific tone, and some of that tone was brought into the Avengers as well. You know, everything with AC/DC and stuff like that. Like that was all gone here. But the biggest example I can think of is the title sequence at the end. It doesn't feel like an Iron Man title sequence at all. It feels a bit like Kick-Ass, and I don't like Kick-Ass. And also, this is a very minor nitpick, but why is the film's title Iron Man 3, but the 3 is spelled out?
Don't ask me. I mean,
yeah, because it's like I remember when I watched this for the first time on opening night, when Iron Man 3 with the 3 spelled out popped up. I was like, what? That's not the name of the film. like it's got the number 3 on all the posters and the whole media releases. So why is it just Iron Man 3 with the 3 spelled out?
I don't know.
I mean, granted, that's the least of that film's problems, but it's just, why? But then there's like just a lot of Shane Black tropes, like, you know, this being set on Christmas and having the kid, and I'm not sure if any of those really worked. Here's the thing: I actually really love Shane Black's first film, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I think it's a great movie, and it does also feature Robert Downey Jr. And that it's actually the only film he directed prior to Iron Man 3. I mean, he did The Nice Guys after this, which is an excellent movie. But then after that, he did the stupid Predator sequel, which was not a good movie. So what did you think of the kid, since we're on that subject?
I wouldn't say I hated him. It's just compared to everything else that's going on in the movie, he's kind of just out of place. I don't, like, you could cut him out and it'd still be the same movie. Like, you don't really need him. I don't think his relationship with Tony matters all that much in the grand scheme of things in this movie. I think he's disposable, but I wouldn't necessarily say I think it was downright bad, you know, what they did with the kid.
Yeah, I think I thought the kid was good. I've heard a lot of people say he's one of the best child actors they've seen in a long time. I don't know if I'd go that far, but he was good as far as like acting goes. But I could not believe some of the stuff Tony said to him. It was very awkward to watch, you know, telling the kid not to be a pussy and stuff like that. Like, I just got this weird feeling watching it, and it didn't help Tony be a sympathetic protagonist. So that's where the red flag for this movie started to fly for me. That's when I first watched this movie in the theater. It's like, wait a minute, where is this going? And it's quite convenient that the one kid he bumps into also happens to have a father that neglected him, like Tony.
Yeah.
And like when he said the thing about his dad, I thought, well, that's something Tony can relate to. But instead of taking the kid under his wing, he treated him like that.
Yeah.
Which is, I thought it was a missed opportunity. But I do like the moment where he's like, oh, remember what I told you about bullies? Like those sorts of moments were cool. Like, in fact, I actually love that whole sequence in that town. I thought it was cool seeing Tony fend for himself without his suits.
Right.
So it's a nice change of pace in terms of as far as the action is concerned. But the problem is he kind of goes just about the rest of the movie without his suits. And the suits that are in this movie are very disposable. But we can probably touch on that a little bit more later once we get to the end. Let's talk about Guy Pearce.
Okay.
I love Guy Pearce. I think he gives a great performance with material that is so non-existent. His motivation makes zero sense. I mean, he's got the motivation of, oh, that character was a dick to me, so I'm going to do something evil. And people have compared him to Riddler in Batman Forever, even down to the glasses and crazy hair, you know?
Right.
it comes out of nowhere. Like, he shows Pepper his giant brain, and he's just this different looking guy, but we never get told how he goes from that crazy guy in the beginning to that guy. And he gets that monologue where he says, oh, you did this to me, and I nearly committed suicide, but then I realized I was anonymous. So that's enough motivation to create a terrorist organization. It was from one extreme to the other. No pun intended. It just came out of nowhere, and I don't know how exactly he formed the partnership with Maya Henson either. And I guess while we're on the subject of Maya, I'm a huge Rebecca Hall fan. I love her in The Prestige, but her character made no sense. Her motivation was less clear than Killian's, and she gets shot, and she too was also quite disposable at the end.
Yeah. She's done. She just dies.
She does.
No one cares.
Nothing. Yeah. What did you think of Extremis? Or I guess I should point out real quick. I'm sure many comic fans were probably a bit confused when it's revealed in this film that it's pronounced Extremis, because I'm pretty sure everyone assumed it was pronounced Extremis. But whatever. That's, again, another minor nitpick. Any thoughts on Extremis?
Like, Extremis, I mean, it's whatever. It's fine. It's it's just a big biological weapon that can make people immortal until they're not immortal because the plot needs them to not be immortal.
Yeah, it's a very strange plot mechanic to introduce when in the previous Iron Man movies, it's all been really tech-based and espionage, it is very, very different. I feel like if they were gonna introduce the Mandarin in a film, I'm not sure this is the thing to introduce it with, but I kind of felt like, again, I'll bring up X-Men 3 again. It kind of felt like it was doing the Dark Phoenix and the Cure in the same film. It felt like too much. I felt like Extremis can be tackled in its own film. I mean, they do have an interesting take on it. I mean, I'm okay with it, but I felt it might have been a little too much for this movie. I don't know. I do have some issues with, I mean, there's a lot of issues with Extremis in this movie, but like, it's never really properly explained just what it does exactly and like how it really affects people. Because I don't quite know how the brain has anything to do with, you being able to breathe fire or turn into like lava people or whatever.
Here's the simple answer to that. It's a comic book movie, so who cares? But all right. But here's my like biggest question. So I understand how Killian got, all these people to volunteer for Extremis because, all these people, they lost their limbs. They want it back. They want a second chance. That's fine. That works. I don't understand how that turns them all into terrorists, though. Literally every single one of them becomes a terrorist.
Well, I think my biggest problem is, like, I think by the time you get to the end when Pepper is injected with Extremis, I do not like Pepper in that end, but one step at a time. But like, for one, she seems like she's like the Hulk in a way that she loses control. It seems like she's just rage filled. She gets these kung fu moves out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Like, where does that come from? Like, I don't understand why people call like Ray a Mary Sue when it's perfectly explained. Yeah, she can fight, but Pepper has not displayed any sort of like kung fu moves whatsoever. And I mean, like, I get like
earlier in this movie, she was in an Iron Man suit for the first time, and she was absolutely clueless as to how to simply like use her. And then like, later in this movie, she's doing all these kung fu flips. She punches through the armor. She knows she knows she can do everything.
Yeah, to me, Pepper's a Mary Sue. I'm sorry. I don't want to, but like, I don't mind so much that Pepper gets in on the action, whether it's in like an Iron Man suit, but she just has these abilities for some reason. And
I think like Extremis is supposed to, it's obviously supposed to amplify your power. I don't think it like teaches you martial arts.
no, because I mean, to compare this to the first Avenger, when Steve gets injected with the super soldier serum, yeah, he does gain powers, but you could tell in that sequence he's not adjusted to his new body yet. Like he
He's
crashes
running all
into
these shops and
like he runs into garbage cans or whatever.
right.
So like you could tell that it's something that he had to adapt to.
Right.
But she just has these kung fu moves. But then what's worse about it is the end montage when, I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about that end montage. I'll go ahead and say one of the things I don't like is Tony having his arc reactor removed. And
Really?
Only for one reason. I was so angry how they did it because they did it in a way that suggests that Tony could have done this all along. Like,
yeah.
they used a giant magnet. Like, couldn't they have done that as soon as he got back to America in the first place?
Yeah.
But the whole, and I fixed Pepper, might be the thing that made me the most angry in the film. Like, the way he just says, in passing, I fixed Pepper. What? How? Like, there's been no evidence of Tony being able to control this or even knowing how to.
The plot just needs him to. But does it, though? I mean, like, what would happen if he didn't take Extremis out of her? It's not like it's.
I mean, like, maybe.
Her.
And then what I thought was going to happen, which I guess is what we end up getting in Age of Ultron with the Hulk. I thought when Pepper, it looked like Pepper was like losing control, and she's like, "Oh, that was so violent." She's like, she just goes back to normal. Like I thought maybe they could have done a thing where Tony like calms her down or something. I mean, maybe not. Excuse me, like maybe not go to the extreme of like the sun's getting real low.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something. But she just goes back to normal and says, "That was really violent." I hate that line. What did you think of the comedy in this film?
You said it earlier, and I agree with you. It's once you get to the Mandarin twist, it becomes too much because the stakes are supposed to be rising at this point. It's like the president has been taken hostage, and Pepper's getting infected with Extremis, and all these things are happening. And the movie, it's more of a comedy than ever. Like, yeah. The first act had its quips here and there, but it was pretty serious. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, it's like the first Iron Man film in that, it balances the two tones very well.
Yeah, this
that's
is like the complete, it's a weird kind of balance. It's like the first act is more intense and less quippy, and then the third act is more quippy and less intense. Although the third act should be a lot more intense. But
the closest we have to like a real intense moment is the Air Force One sequence.
Oh yeah, and I actually do like that sequence.
By itself, it's actually a really, really good sequence.
Mm-hmm.
The notion of like Iron Man can only carry like a handful of people at once, and then he has to like sort of get everyone together, and then like that's all cool. But then it gets ruined by it being a reveal that it was just a drone the whole time.
Right.
And it was played for laughs. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, the suit got smashed into bits.
Because that's a running gag.
Yeah, and I think what's worse than that is during the final battle, when Tony's suit is coming in to save the day, even though he's got a bunch of other suits flying around, but whatever. It comes back, and it looks like it's going to go on to Tony and latch onto him. But then it just crashes. And Tony's like, whatever.
Remember that was 2 minutes after Pepper, in quotes, died?
I did not believe Pepper was dead at all.
Well, no, I don't think anyone did. But like,
I heard a gasp in the theater. It's like, come on, she's not dead.
But it's, for someone who's watching that movie for the first time, if they have a low IQ, they think that Pepper just died, and then 2 minutes later, there's another running gag of the main Iron Man armor in the movie breaking down yet again.
I hated the comedy. I hated it. It was not for me.
Mm.
I mean, we've talked about this a bit, but like, there's just no real serious stakes by the third act.
Right.
And like Tony himself doesn't even take the situation that seriously. I mean, there are even moments in Avengers where I was like, I'd like Tony to take this a little more seriously. Apparently I'm the only one who felt that way, but I felt it 10 times more in this. Like him just treating it like it's no big deal. And no, it is a big deal. Can you take it seriously? Right. But the thing with Avengers is that they had the mind of Joss Whedon. With all of Whedon's work, whether it's Buffy or Firefly or Astonishing X-Men or Justice League or what have you, his work is very funny. And okay, maybe not Justice League, but yet you still cared about these characters and it's still taken seriously.
Yeah.
Whereas here, I can't take anything seriously in the end because everyone just wants to make jokes all the time.
Right.
And like, I don't want to be laughing in like these moments. I want to like take this seriously because they presented it as a very serious threat in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, like, when I first watched this movie, in the theater, I was really enjoying like the first half of the movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But then when I rewatched the movie, or I watched it the second time in the theater, I was like, okay, now that I know what's coming, am I going to enjoy the first half still? And it turns out I didn't like the first half either. But there's some things I do like. But there are some messages in here that are so hollow, like everything about free enterprise, like I couldn't latch onto it because the film doesn't take itself seriously. And those messages are just thrown on there and forgotten about, and there's just no flow.
Yeah.
I'll give it this though. I actually love the Jensen cameo in the beginning of the movie. In fact, I actually like the whole 1999 sequence. I think that's nice, and it's funny seeing Happy Hogan with a mullet. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's just part of the greater first act of the movie. The first act is, pretty good, and then second and third act, it just keeps getting worse as it keeps going on.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, I love the action in the movie. I like the sequence where his house is attacked, and I remember particularly cheering when he took out one of the helicopters with a piano. But like I was just like, yeah. But at the end, like we said earlier, those Iron Man suits are just so expendable.
Right.
And I get that they kind of are because he kind of built all those suits like very quickly.
Yeah.
But do you have anything to say about the after credit scene? With the Mark Ruffalo cameo.
The Mark Ruffalo cameo. I like it. I do like it actually. It was a nice little twist. Tony wasn't just being a narrator for no reason. He was in therapy and he was talking to Bruce Banner, and Bruce is like, Bruce is asleep the whole time. I thought that was a nice little twist.
See, I feel like that should have been before the credits. I didn't want to get these expectations about what the post-credit scene was going to be, because Avengers sort of established that, okay, so we're going to have a post-credit scene that teases something in the future. In that case, it was Thanos. But then the second one, the last one, at the very end, it's just a joke. You don't have to take it too seriously. You don't have to really stick around for it. This fell into the jokey sort of category, to me. And when it was that, when I saw it was that, I thought it was a funny scene. I like we said last time, I love Ruffalo as Banner, but it just wasn't the most exciting thing in the world, to be totally honest. But it's funny that technically Bruce Banner is in the entire movie since Tony is telling him the story. But it's also funny that Banner sleeps listening to the story of the movie. So what does that say about the movie?
Yeah.
Let's talk. What did you think of Tony's anxiety attacks? I'm kind of jumping around the place, but
Yeah. I thought that was a really great decision, actually. And the first time he had, like, his first attack at that restaurant, it was really great. He discovers that he has an anxiety issue, and I thought it was his anxiety scenes. I'm trying to think of like the other ones, like what exactly happened.
He's got one.
The second
both
one was
of them involve
like
the kid.
Both of them involve the kid. The first one was pretty great, and the second one was whatever. It's just something that kind of happened real fast and then left under the rug. The third one is like when he gets over his anxiety in a way.
So here's my thing. I agree. I think the anxiety attacks are really, really good. And I think Downey like sells the hell out of it. I think he's just tremendous. I believe that he has these anxiety issues. I believe that the events of the Avengers would give him like this sort of PTSD.
Oh yeah.
Like I buy that for sure. And it's a nice way to, connect everything all together in the MCU. But I don't like how he just got over it like so quickly. He's just like, okay. Like that's it. Like they don't come back or anything like that. There's no mention of it, him having PTSD anymore after that.
No, I mean, throughout the rest of the MCU, there's hints that he's still kind of, paranoid, but he never has those like anxiety attacks ever again.
Yeah. John Favreau in this movie. Let's talk about him a little bit.
Happy Hogan.
Happy Hogan. He's not in the movie a whole lot, but I think he's very good in this movie. Obviously, John Favreau, not only was he happy, he directed the first two Iron Man movies. He didn't direct this one, but he's still around. Even to this day, he's still around, which I think is kind of cool. But he gets taken out pretty early on. But though I do think I may be reading way too into this. Like the line he has about like I feel like the way they treated John Favreau in this film is basically how he was treated in real life by Marvel. When you think about it, because it's like the line he has, it's like, yeah, I miss you too, but the way things used to be, now you're running off with super friends. He's like, yeah, I bet you do miss that. Though I will say one of the jokes that does work for me is the fact that he loves Downton Abbey. I think that's a good joke. It's just like of all the shows he could possibly love, it's Downton Abbey's his favorite. I think that's just a funny little tidbit.
But I love Happy in this movie. Even though he's not in it too much, he had a good presence.
Rhodey, how do you feel about Don Cheadle's Rhodey this time around?
I think I've said this in one of the Iron Man podcasts, but for Don Cheadle's Rhodey, this is my favorite appearance that he has in the MCU.
I might agree with you there, actually.
Yeah.
I thought
it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think Rhodey is probably my favorite thing about this movie, to be totally honest. I like his. He does have a really good quick wit to him, and I actually do like his performance this time around. I do buy Tony and Rhodey's friendship, which I did not really buy in Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Even though I do like, I'll go and say this right now. I still prefer Iron Man 2 over Iron Man 3 to this day.
Okay.
Despite its problems, and trust me, there are problems in Iron Man 2, I still prefer that over Iron Man 3 because I think Iron Man 3's problems are far worse. But another joke that does work for me, surprisingly perhaps, is his password, War Machine Rocks. That's a good gag. I love it.
Yeah.
But I guess one last thing I want to talk about real quick, and it's going to be a nerdy nitpick. It's Iron Patriot in this movie. So for those that don't know about Iron Patriot in the comics, Iron Patriot is Norman Osborn. And obviously we're never going to get Norman Osborn in the Iron Patriot suit, even though I think it'd be amazing to get Willem Dafoe in
You
the Iron
never
Patriot
know.
suit.
I mean, you never know though.
I mean, who
It
knows
could
what
happen.
No Way Home? Who knows what No Way Home does if they do in fact bring back Willem Dafoe? And just imagine they still keep Willem Dafoe in the MCU and he's Iron Patriot. That would be amazing. But the reason why Norman in the comics becomes the Iron Patriot is despite Tony Stark, because he's the founder of the Dark Avengers. So his Iron Patriot suit is an amalgamation of both Iron Man and Captain America. Whereas here it's Rhodey, and I don't mind that Rhodey is Iron Patriot. I do like the explanation they give where, Iron Patriot seems a little more, I guess, more appropriate than War Machine. But what I don't like about Iron Patriot in this movie is his costume. Because, and again, I'm aware I'm going to be a massive nerd about this, but in the film, it's largely a blue suit. But it makes him look a lot more like Captain America to me. Whereas in the comics, the Iron Patriot suit is predominantly red. Because it's a mix of both Iron Man and Captain America.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's just primarily blue, which I don't like. But again, I'm well aware that it is a massive nitpick.
That doesn't bother me that much. I don't care.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on Iron Man 3?
I think we got everything.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have much else to say other than I don't like this movie. This is the first, I will be honest, this is actually the very first MCU movie I did not like when I first watched it. And I've tried to get into it again. Like each time I really want to like it because there's stuff in here that I do like. Even though I said I wasn't quite feeling Shane Black's tropes, I do appreciate the different sort of direction that Shane Black has. Like there's a unique energy to the film that's kind of appealing, but unfortunately it's the writing that brings everything down for me. And as such, it is, to me, one of the weaker MCU movies.
Yeah.
What's your grade on it?
I might settle with a 6. Yeah, I'm going to go with a 6.
I am going with a 4 out of 10.
Ooh.
And I think this is our first official divided film in terms of gradings. I think we've both been pretty consistent with our grades. Right. This is, I think, the first major split. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's still to this day, it is one of 4, I guess, MCU movies where I just genuinely do not like it. I don't think it's a good movie.
I definitely like it a lot more than you, but I still don't like it. It's I still do have your problems. Just it doesn't bother me as much as you do, I guess. But
fair enough.
Yeah.
And look, if people do like this, I know there are lots of people that do genuinely like this movie. In fact, Confused Matthew, he praised this movie.
This is his favorite one. Or
it might be his favorite MCU movie. Yeah, but if you like this movie, that's great. More power to you. But I just happen to differ with this film. I know I'm not alone either. I know there are lots of people out there that don't particularly care for this film either.
Oh yeah, because this is currently in the MCU there are 3 big pies in the face to the fans. I don't know. It's not my best analogy, but the Mandarin being a washed up drug addict, that was a big, or the fans took it as a big, middle finger. Nick Fury getting his eye scratched by a cat. Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. And most recently, Ralph Boner and WandaVision.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I think those are probably the big 3, and I guess there's probably some you could pull from Endgame, but yeah. Honestly, those things don't really this is definitely the worst one, I'd say, out of all of those. But those things don't really bother me that much. Actually, no, I take it
Yeah.
back. Nick Fury's the worst one of all those. What the hell am I saying?
I keep forgetting that Captain Marvel thing exists, so that with Nick Fury getting his eye scratched up by a flurkin.
Well, I mean, and I haven't seen Captain Marvel in like a couple of years since it came out, I think.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I might have seen it on like Blu-ray once, and that was probably it. But
That's I'll go, spoiler alert. I alluded to that there were 4 MCU movies that I don't like. Captain Marvel is also one of those movies.
hmm.
I don't like that movie very much. And I guess if for those that have followed the other MCU videos we've done, you might guess the other 2. And yeah, they're the 2 Spider-Man movies. I don't like those either. So those are the 4. But Iron Man 3 is the first one. But with that being said, thank you so much for listening to this, and look forward to our next discussion on the MCU, which will be the much beloved, but not really, Thor: The Dark World. Even though I like Thor: The Dark World much more than Iron Man 3. But that's a discussion for the next video. So thanks once again. We'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.